Hey guys, this is Alan with Sustainable Intentions and your podcast, Real People, Real Ideas. I'm here with my friend Dean Powell in Bali, Indonesia. He is the CEO and founder of Addictionary. It's an addiction program, recovery program, and he's also the owner and founder of Life Torque. And he runs an amazing men's circle here in Bali, which is basically how I found out about all these other things. And so, yeah. Here he is. If you could just tell us a bit about yourself, Dean, and base kind of a brief summary of what got you here to this point where you're at.
53 years. Here we go.
Yeah, we'll just cram 53 years into about, 15 minutes.
Time, guys. Basically, I had a rough upbringing in the sense that I had an abusive father, violent, angry. And then I had this belief that I was never good enough, and he used to tell me, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you're good for nothing and all that, So I believed that. So for me there was this missingness, this void of love and of a male role model. And so I spent most of my life chasing that love and searching for that love. And I especially searched in male role models, so I'd go to especially alpha males, So I would hang around guys who were kind of the tough guys of whatever circle they're in, and I started to get involved with bikies, because for me the bikers were
the tough guys,
pretty tough, So I kind of hung around them and started to get involved with them. Although I still never felt right, I never felt like I belonged there, and they never thought so either. They thought I was just a gay biker. They still think I was gay, and I'm like, what gay? But I was really sensitive, I was a really sensitive kid, and even as a kid I was super sensitive. My father hated that. Because I was so sensitive, so he wanted to try and toughen me up even more, And then, so I started following these bikers around, got involved in drugs, and first dealing, and our parties were like parties out of a movie, like Scarface, we'd have like all sorts of stuff all over the tables, methamphetamines and pot and LSD and ecstasy and stuff all around all of these parties, and then I started to just use snorting at first. And realised, suddenly it gave me this, wow, I'm so confident, and I was the life of the party, and everyone loved me, and also because I was dealing, then it gave me that sense of power and that sense of, people really wanting to be with me and wanting to like me. And so I had a massive circle of friends, but they were just associates, and all they wanted was the drugs. So then I got involved in, after a while I met a girl who was into needles, and I said I'd never ever do needles because I hated needles, I was always scared of needles. And she convinced me one day, and I remember this time like just sitting on this bed with this guy who she'd scored some stuff off, and I remember just feeling so dirty, while they were preparing, and I was like so scared, don't give me too much, make sure you use a clean needle, and I was watching everything they did, and just give me a little bit, and they were laughing because I was really nervous, But I remember as I held my arm out, I remember feeling like I was selling my soul, and I did in that moment for a lot of years. So when he injected it into my arm, I just remember this massive rush, and then feeling really sick and going, oh, fuck, you've given me too much, you gave me too, and freaking out, and that just made them laugh even more. I was just going to take it easy, settle down, you're going to be fine, And then after that kind of passed after a few seconds, I guess, and then this, I just felt amazing, 10-foot high, bulletproof. I just felt so confident, inspired, wanted to do stuff, wanted to fucking, I had so much energy. And then so I started to chase that high all the time, and you can never get that high back. So I really started to use more and more and more, to the point where I started to use what I was selling or meant to be selling. And then I ended up getting stuff on credit from these heavy biker guys, and normally I could get it on credit, sell enough to keep some for myself, and then it just got to the point where I was just using it all. And then not even thinking about the consequences of owing these guys, So I got myself into a pretty bad place, started stealing off everyone I knew, even my partner, newborn child, who had no idea what I was doing, because I was actually using when I met her. So for 3 years of our relationship, she had no idea that I was using, that I was a junkie.
Wow.
So I didn't even think about the amount of lies that takes.
That's wild. And so what turned that around for you? How did you come out of that,
Look, it got to a point where, actually I've written a book, my book Shoot Up. So
Yeah.
It was actually going to be called Life of Lies because my life was a lie. I had no idea what was truth anymore and what was real.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point where I just hated myself and I hated the fact that I was doing it. I hated the drug, I hated the needle, but I still couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And so this book actually starts on the first chapter is all about the worst time of my using. So it was my son's first birthday. And I'm sitting on the toilet actually because I used to hide in the toilet and hide all my gear in the toilet, so nobody knew what I was doing. And I remember just shaking uncontrollably while I'm shooting up like this, probably the biggest hit I've had ever. Like it was about a quarter of a gram, and it was my third hit for the day because it was a special occasion. Yeah, it was my son's birthday, and I just remember thinking, "Fucking, what if I die here? You know, what if this is how they find me?" Automatically thinking that's how it was going to happen.
On your son's first birthday.
My son's first birthday, yeah. And right outside this little white plywood door, you know, it was this amazing, you know, family party, special occasion that I wasn't even present for, you know, like, and that was, I guess, the story of my life there, just not being present for anybody, or my family. And so, even though, like, I hated it and I didn't want to stop, I just couldn't stop. You know, I didn't want to use anymore, but I didn't know how to stop, so I kept using for a few years. And then I knew I just couldn't get away from it. It was in Australia, everyone I knew had it. I tried stopping once. I actually told my partner, you know, like, finally confessed to her. I remember her soul breaking, you know, like as I sat on the bed and just watching her soul break through those blue eyes and going, oh, you know, like, and her just crumbling and going, wow, you have to get up. So, and that was my biggest fear, losing my family. You know?
Yeah.
So I remember walking and crying all night, and then she, you know, when I went back the next day, she said, "Oh, let's see what we can do about this and work through this as long as you're going to get help." You know. So I went and tried to get help. I don't know that I was that ready to stop yet, but I stopped for 3 months. But it wasn't long before I used again because everyone I knew had it.
Yeah.
So I started using again, and then I knew we just had to get out. So I left Australia, went to New Zealand. Because I knew it was harder to get in New Zealand, and I knew I didn't want it anymore anyway. So I remember the last hit I had of my life was actually at the Perth International Airport. I was in the toilet.
Like before getting on the plane to go to New Zealand. Wow.
So I remember shooting up, chucking my black pouch with needle, spoon, lighter, cotton wool and all that, and I just chucked it in the bin, and that was the last hit I had of my life.
Wow.
But then I just swapped drugs for alcohol in New Zealand. So I did like cold turkey detox. It was pretty full on. I had horrible nightmares and, you know, shakes and sick for, you know, probably about 3 years it took me to get over that. But then I just switched that and I just started drinking all the time. I became an alcoholic in New Zealand, and then I colluded with my partner on it. So I used to buy her favourite UDL cans, and then I could buy my own, you know, Jim Beam and Coke cans, and then it was okay. So we both kind of became alcoholics for a while, which obviously wasn't good for the family. You know?
I noticed that with myself, with drinking in the past, that it was like when I was with, and there's a prior partner that, and I knew that she liked wine, and I was in Australia too actually, and it was like, oh, well, they have wine on sale, you know, like 3 bottles for $20. So like I didn't feel bad. It's like, oh, look, I brought this wine as like a gift because I know you like wine, and normally I drink beer, but you know, I'll just share the wine with you, and that's, you know, exactly. That's, you know, it's all right to have a couple glasses, no big deal. And then it would be like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks where sure it was only a couple glasses, but it was a couple glasses every single night for weeks at a time, and it's like it's not really what I came here to do, you know.
So it condones your behaviour then,
so exactly, because she,
I
understand that principle for sure.
And there's a thing called transference, which is where you stop one thing and then you just take up something else. You know?
Yeah, it's very much where my pot smoking turned into alcoholism was because and actually I was already drinking quite a bit anyways, but because I ended up on probation and I couldn't smoke because of random drug tests and everything, but alcohol you can get out of your system in, you know, 24 hours easy. So I could drink 29 days of the month and then just not drink the night before I went in for my probation visit, and I would blow 0 and it would be totally fine. So really the probation that was supposed to keep me from drinking and driving actually made me drink more because I quit smoking pot, which was my drug of choice at the time.
So, and the truth is, you're using something to fill a void.
Yeah.
So if you stop that, you're going to have a bigger void.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you need something else to try and fill that void. So it's not about stopping, So it's one of the things I learned is, when you just stop it, you create a bigger void for somebody. So it's about, there was something missing inside of me that I wasn't sure. I had no idea what that was.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I switched that for the alcohol, and then I became an alcoholic, and then I started to swap I realised had a very addictive personality, so I started to swap my addictions for better quality addictions. So I started to become, like a gym junkie and go to personal development seminars, and then I was going to the gym like 7 days a week. I had the most, like the best I've ever looked in my life, the most ripped body, but I still felt broken inside. So I was still a junkie because I was a gym junkie, and it was affecting my relationship, and I still didn't feel right about myself. So. And then I switched from that to like porn to sex to food and I just kept switching things until I did this process called quantum shift process that I do now with people, and it actually gets to the root core of what was missing for me. And when I did this process, it was like somebody opened my eyes to life for the very first time, and it was where I discovered that I've been searching my whole life for this love from my father without even thinking about it. And it changed everything for me. Like my life did a complete 180 after that, and I started to to do some work on myself. And I still hadn't, my son was 9 years of age, and I had him by the throat up against the wall, wanting to punch him in the face. And I remember thinking in that moment, what the fuck, what happened? I spent my whole life saying I'll never ever be like my dad, I'll never be like my dad. And in my mind I was nothing like my dad. But in that moment I realised I fucking turned into my dad. And I didn't even know why I was so angry. I was angry that I was angry because I didn't know why I was angry.
Yeah, but it's like that subconscious programming that we have, that we pick up from our parents at such a young age. And then even though we can try consciously our whole life to not be like that, when we revert back to our subconscious, it's projecting the same patterns that we've had our entire life.
Yeah, and they say because 85% of who we are is fully developed by the time we're 8 years of age.
Yeah.
So and we don't even develop our intellect until after 8 years of age.
Yeah.
So everything's in the subconscious. So this is why when we don't get our own way, we end up stamping our feet and reverting back to an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
When things don't go the way we want.
Yeah.
So it was all of that, I started to realise, wow, there's, like I was chasing this love that I was missing from my dad, and then everything shifted after that for me. And then in that moment I was like, I've got to do something about this, and it's got to be outside of my conscious mind, because, how could I turn into my dad, even though I spent my whole life thinking I was nothing like my dad.
Yeah.
So I went and did lots and lots of work, and anger management courses, and lots of diving deep into counselling, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, all sorts of stuff. But the thing that flipped it around was this quantum shift process, because it just showed me that everything I was searching for was actually a lie. It was this perception that something was missing when nothing was actually really missing. And then it just changed everything for me. So I ended up, I had a construction business, I just sold that to my brother-in-law, and I went and volunteered in a rehab centre in Australia, because I knew I'd been through what I went through for a reason. And I wanted to know what that was, and even though I hadn't used for a lot of years, and I was clean from drugs for about 10 years at that stage, and I hadn't drunk for a couple of years. I was still drinking socially at that time. And then I stopped because one day I was like, this doesn't do anything for me. Why am I drinking?
Yeah, what's the point?
Right, and I liked myself better when I didn't, so I actually just stopped drinking. But I really got to see in that addiction centre why I'd been through what I went through and how I'd got there. And it started to tick all of these boxes and make sense of everything, And then I found I was really good, I stayed there, I did the program a couple of times as a client, even though I hadn't used, and I realised, wow, everyone, all of these guys are the same, these people in circle are all the same, going through the same stuff. Even though I hadn't used, I was still had the same feelings and emotions and shame and guilt and secrets that we were hiding, So I stayed with these guys, and I ended up doing some training with them, and facilitated training, became a counsellor with them, and found that I was really good at it because of my experience. So I actually felt like I'd found, for the first time in my life, something that I was really good at, and a purpose for being here. So I found
which is something that we need, right? Finding that purpose gives you those reasons to stay clean or stay sober, or and just to keep on with life in general.
And then to have a good life. To start to realise I can actually I'm having much higher highs, much higher highs than any drug would ever give me, and appreciating things in my life, like, the sunshine on my back and the simplest things, like, and then my family and relationships and connection with people, realizing how much I craved that my whole life, how much I craved intimacy, like, and then I'd avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
And my life started to have more meaning and started to feel fuller. And so, I was really, I remember doing the training in the rehab centre, and I remember sitting there, and there's all these, like people with double degrees and psychs and doctors, and they're all doing the training, and I was like, I remember voicing, I feel so out of place here, like, I feel like, you guys are all qualified, and one of them said to me, Dean, you've got something none of us could ever have. Like, you've got 15 years of experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I hadn't realized how valuable that was.
Yeah, and, Kelly and I we talk about it a lot, and that is that, all of these dramas and sufferings and everything else that we go through in our lives are what make us who we are right now, and what give us the experience to then turn around and help other people. And it's just like you're saying, somebody can go to school for, 12 years, getting the doctorates and this and that and everything else. But if they haven't lived through it, they're always going to have a different perspective of it, and they might have wonderful ways of treating people. I'm not taking that away from any doctor, but they don't have that hands-on experience from that specific point of view, and all of us have our own points of view and our own experience. And so, that contribution is really, really important to helping people, because you don't know. I mean, in a group of 40 people in a rehab program, one of them might resonate much more with you. Yeah. One of them might resonate much more with the next guy. Yeah, and so having all those different perspectives is really, it's important for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you decided to start your own recovery program after that.
I did. I actually, when I experienced this quantum shift process, it changed so much that I was like, I have to find out what this is all about.
Yeah.
So I really delved into quantum physics and quantum mechanics and this cutting edge technology, of what's out there now. Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza,
listen to all those guys.
So realizing that that's actually possible to change everything, like let alone our genes, but my past, my behavior, I realized that all of this was actually a blessing,
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to, when I was working in the rehab centre, actually one day there was somebody from the mines from up in Western Australia.
Mm-hmm.
One of the supervisors rang and he said, look, I want to send one of our guys down to do your program. And I said, wow, what about if we were to come up there and do it? He said, oh, mate, that would be amazing. We have so many guys up here who are struggling with that. So I went and saw my supervisor and I said, oh, can we run a program up there? She said, no, it's not in our business plan. I said, well, it's a mining company, they're loaded. Do you think we should put it in the business plan?
Yeah, put it in the business plan.
I think it would be a good idea. She said, no, we're not doing that. I said, well, what about online? Can we do an online program for them? And she said, no, look, we're not doing that. So in that moment, I was like, wow, I know these guys need help. And there were lots of people who lived in outback Australia who couldn't access help.
Yeah.
A lot of people who were also famous who, were struggling, like famous football stars and sports stars and musicians who were struggling with addiction, who didn't want people to know they were coming to a rehab centre. So I decided to develop this program. And originally it was a 12-week program. And it was everything that I'd learned in this rehab centre, but the best of the best there, but also then all the other stuff that I've learned around this quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and plus the stuff from my life that worked.
Yeah.
So I developed and worked on that, and it probably took me about 5 years, and then it went from a 12-week program to now it's a 16-week online program for addiction, and it's about any addiction. So I don't focus on the drug or the alcohol, it's about what's missing. So what's underneath that? What void are people trying to fill?
Yeah.
So it gives them an understanding of how they got to where they've gotten to, but then also what to do about that. So how to get out of that.
Yeah.
In the best and shortest way possible, which I found anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I was actually listening to an interview with Dr. Gabor Mate the other day, and he said that, and this is his belief from all of his years of experience, is that childhood trauma doesn't necessarily lead to addiction, but all addiction is stemmed from some form of childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we tend to miss in, especially in westernized society, is we see the symptoms of a problem and we treat the symptoms.
Yeah.
And we do this with, all of our diseases, all of our, depression, everything, and addiction and everything else, and there's all, the studies with, like the B.F. Skinner studies with the rats and the opiates, but it's like you have a rat locked in a cage and you give it the choice of getting high or eating. And like, truthfully, if you put me in a box with no family, no friends, no support system, nothing else, and gave me the choice of a meal or getting high, I'd probably get high, because what else is there to do? So there's definitely this treating the underlying factors, and you need support systems, and you need community, and you need to figure out what it is, that void that you need to fix or fill. And fix is a bad word, but to understand.
And uncover and discover and go through. And when it's that whole, when you go within, you'll never need to go without. So we spend our whole lives trying to satisfy our senses, to make ourselves feel better. But nothing of our senses ever satisfies our soul, so it's that going in to find out what that is, and that's where our work mostly is subconscious, because the subconscious is where most of it lies, and getting to the core of what's going on. And I'm also like, there's this school of thought, that once an addict, always an addict, which is no way. So my focus is life after recovery. So you can absolutely, like, the road to recovery is a dead end. The road through recovery is where you want to be going, So this whole, AA, again, not to take anything away from them or NA or these groups, they're amazing. They've changed millions of lives all around the world, But to have someone stand up for the rest of their life affirming that they're an addict is a really dumb affirmation. Like, I'm not an addict
you're repeating
anymore.
to yourself every single day that you're powerless over alcohol or you're powerless over some sort of drug. And
then also it's that, then they have to go to meetings and have sponsors for the rest of their life. So if you stop going to a meeting or you stop seeing your sponsor or ringing your sponsor, then you fall off the wagon. Well, then you haven't sorted out the addiction yet. So, like, I'm not an addict anymore. Like, I've beaten my addictions, or I've transitioned my addictions, so I'm not that anymore. So it's absolutely possible to move through that and have a life outside of recovery.
I agree. I mean, I know that, and I would never knock the 12-step programs either, because they do. They help so many people. My mother, she went through the 12-step program, and she's been clean, I don't know, it's 15 or 18 years or something like that now. And she accredits it to the 12 steps for sure. And she's, she still helps out and she sponsors some people and she does little bits here and there, but she's not really like, in the program so much anymore. But I really do believe that affirmation, to continue to tell yourself every single day, because that's basically what they're saying, like, what Bruce Lipton says about changing the subconscious mind is what you repeat to yourself every single day is what becomes, So if you want something in your life, you need to start repeating that self, best in the morning, best in the evening, And
I am, whatever comes after I am, is the most powerful affirmation you can have. This is what you're going to be creating. And I mean, again, not to knock them, because I think, like, they have changed millions of lives, but I just noticed there's a huge number of people who are stuck in recovery, and I've had a couple of them come to me and say, like, my whole life is just about recovery. It's all, everything, my focus is all about it. All about alcohol, or all about like, and not doing it, and not transitioning through that. So that's my focus, is life after recovery and how to open that up.
And to have your life back, so your whole life isn't just based around that addiction anymore.
And then the other program I created it's an online program for people who are looking after people with addiction. So it's a 12-week online program for parents and partners and siblings and friends, who are looking after people with addiction, because what they tend to do out of love pushes the person further into the addiction, and they end up enabling them without even realizing. So this program is all about how not to do that, how to bring the focus back to themselves, how to work on themselves, while this is going on in their lives, and how to set boundaries and all of that. So
and it's for somebody dealing with a family or friend that's an addict
Yeah.
or in recovery.
Either. Oh, they're in
Either.
recovery
So
or-
that person doesn't
Yeah.
have to be in recovery for them to
No.
to
They can
be a part of
using,
that
and it can
program.
be anything. It might be an eating disorder, you know.
Yeah.
It might be pharmaceuticals. It might be, like they might have a work addiction or a money addiction.
Yeah.
Because it's all the same stuff,
What do you think about spiritual addiction? Like, because
Yeah.
I know, and I see myself sometimes, I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. Like, is it totally necessary for me to do this extra self-help thing or this extra,
Ayahuasca journey or this
class?
extra-
Yeah, because sometimes you dive full in and you like find something that is helping you in this aspect of your life, so you dive straight into it, but then you get caught up in that so much that you still kind of lose yourself from your life as well, and you can still get addicted to self-help classes and addicted to
exercise.
Exercise for sure.
Work, to money, to spirituality.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to say that it's a better alternative, like I'd much rather be addicted to spirituality than addicted to heroin.
Yeah, sure.
That's my personal choice, but I still think that balance is really important.
Well, the definition of an addiction is, to use a particular substance or behavior to avoid your perceived reality.
Mm.
So if I'm avoiding and I did this when I first came to Bali, like Bali's one of the, especially Ubud, a spiritual mecca of the world, and I started to do all these things to be more spiritual, like I was, going to kirtans and burning incense and sage and wearing feathers in my hair and dressed in white and trying to be spiritual, doing ayahuasca journeys, and then I realized, like I'm trying to be something, like instead of just being me, like I'm trying to be something that I thought I was meant to be, or these people have got it together because they're way more spiritual than me. So it was an escape from who I was.
Yeah.
Then when I realized that, and I just started to back off and go, hang on, like who am I? What am I about? What do I want?
Yeah.
And then just start to live and be more authentic and be real and let people know, not try to be so, hey, I've got it all together, like I know I've got all the answers, and to be more real and let people know that, fuck, I struggle sometimes, I know it. I know what it feels like still to feel down and lonely and depressed sometimes, but I know how to get out of that in a much healthier and faster way than how I used to, or to need something to get me out of that.
Yeah, and I find that that's a big misconception in people's yoga journey and meditation journey and stuff like that. And it's like, I shouldn't be feeling the way I'm feeling. Like I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like maybe I'm angry about something or sad about something or upset about something. I shouldn't be feeling like this. I should be happy and loving all the time. And it's like, no, that's not realistic. Like you're going to have these feelings and you need to experience them and you need to not push them away, but realize why you're having them and pay attention to these things.
Or even just embrace them and even if I don't know why I'm having them, but just to allow them. Because
exactly.
It's what it is,
and not to judge it that it's a good feeling or a bad feeling, because that's also something. This is something I noticed in meditation. when you start getting thoughts. And you notice that your mind's been wandering for the last 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, like damn it, like why, But it's this is such a bad meditation, and it's like no. There's no such thing as a good meditation or a bad meditation. It's just is, It's exactly what it's there.
How do you not think? It's impossible to.
Exactly. The thoughts will come and go. Yeah. So, with these programs, what about, do you have any like little tips that you could give for anybody who is, struggling with addiction or in the recovery process right now?
Look, anybody struggling with addiction, I think the biggest thing for me came when I admitted that I had a problem, and I admitted that the problem was bigger than me. Yeah. Because even when I was a full-blown junkie, I never ever referred to myself or connected myself to being an addict. That didn't resonate. I know I'm fine, I can stop whenever I want. And the truth is I was stealing off everyone I knew and I couldn't stop if I tried. But in my mind I was like, no, I'm fine, I'm not as bad as as you think, I can do it. And so I think admitting, I have got a problem and this is way bigger than I am. And then going to get help, so getting help and from somebody who knows what they're doing, not help from friends who are using or friends who don't use as much as I use, but they still do, So it's actually getting help from somebody who knows what they're talking about. I'd say that's the biggest piece of advice I could give somebody. And then also, not just stopping whatever it is they're doing, like, so if you just stop, like I said, you're using because there's a void, and if you just stop, you're going to have an even bigger void. So this is where a lot of people who stop, like at the addiction center when I worked there, I realized a lot of people who were stopping were becoming even more depressed and even less happy with life because they had nothing else in their life, and and they just seem to have no spark and no zest for life. So I think swapping it with something, but a healthier version of whatever that is. So I mean, if I'm drinking all the time instead of alcohol, instead of drinking alcohol, swap it with something like green juices or smoothies or something that's going to be good for me. So every time I feel like a bear, instead of that, I know I'm having something healthier, or water or soda water or something that's going to be actually better for me. So swapping it with something is a same with, like, I remember when I stopped smoking, and I didn't know this at the time, but I just gravitated toward carrots, and I started eating loads and loads of carrots. And then I read something recently. There was a study on carrots that they have a natural nicotine in them.
Really?
Yeah, so it was like this. My body just gravitated toward carrots. Yeah, they've got some kind of natural nicotine which helps people to the cravings when you stop smoking.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you're not meant to like them, though.
Yeah.
There's people out there.
Oh, check out what I learned on this podcast today.
Pretty hard to smoke, but
All right. Well, then let's maybe. Oh, well, okay. So if somebody was interested in your program, whether it's for recovery or whether they're have a friend or family member that they're dealing with that's an addict or in recovery, the website and how they could get in touch with you, or if they're interested.
So the website's www.addictionary.com.au, and on there we have the addiction program and then the carers program.
Okay.
And then they can send an email or reach out, and if they have any questions, if anyone has any questions that they want to ask me, they can ask me.
Awesome. And I will make sure and put a link below the podcast so that everybody can get in touch with you if they need to, or check out the website. And then I wanted to talk to you about the men's circles, because men's circles are awesome. I went a couple weeks ago and I came in already feeling good. Like I think that I had this little bit of a misconception that the reason that somebody goes to a men's circle is because they're like dealing with some crazy stuff in their life and they need to, they need some help with it and everything else. And what I realized is that, in my group, more than half the people that were there were just there to be there. They were having a great day and they just wanted to be a part of this circle. So for people who don't know anything about it, maybe you can tell us like what a men's circle is, what goes on, and how you created the one here in Bali and everything else.
So it's not as woo-woo as people think. Like we don't all get naked and run around beating our chests, and there's the way I run men's circle is very different. I've done a lot of different like mankind projects and a lot of different men's circles where there's a lot of process work, and I don't do that on purpose because I think they can get in the way of like what we said about just being and acknowledging that whatever is present is okay. So what we do is we just share whatever's present for us in our life. And a lot of guys have mentioned this. I came today and I thought I wasn't going to come to group today because I didn't have anything that I needed to share. But then I was like, hang on, I want to go and just be with other men.
Yeah.
So it's also there's a support factor and a support role there. Yeah. And sometimes it's just so what we do is a guy will share his experience of whatever's going on for him, and then we open it up to the group with strict guidelines, no advice giving, using I statements, so we speak from our own experience.
Yeah.
And then they'll share what came up for them when they heard this person share, and there's something about just being heard, first of all about just being able to speak whatever's going on for us. And some guys say, man, that's all I needed, just to get it out, That was helpful enough. But then to hear other people starting to talk about going through similar stuff, or they've had that in their life, or, and then resonate with that as this, like, there's something so healing. And this is what guys talk about. My God, that's such a cool thing just to have that without having it to be fixed or processed or, so there's some gold that happens there. And, I've been running them in Bali now. In Australia, I ran them for quite a few years in the rehab centre, and I was a part of quite a few different like open circles and closed circles as well. And then I was running them in Bali for about 4 years, and we'd have usually roughly 6 to 8 guys coming, and some weeks 2, some weeks no guys.
Yeah.
It was kind of very small, and then I don't know, like 7 months ago, I think. I was running them at this cafe called Zest Cafe, like a vegan cafe, and an amazing cafe. And same deal, we were having like 6 to 8 guys every week, and then one day 35 guys rolled up, and I was like watching them all walk in going, fuck, what are we going to do with all of them? 35 guys, like it was amazing. And then every week we had between 25 and 35 guys rock up, and we just split into 3 groups now, and have a couple of other people helping me facilitate, and it's just so cool. Like it's just an amazing opportunity for men to share what's really going on and to talk. Because one of the things guys don't do is we don't talk, and the only person we might tell in our life is our partner, and like or our wife, and we'll say, but you're not allowed to tell anyone.
Yeah.
So let alone have they got their own shit in their life.
And now they have to hold on to our stuff,
and they're not allowed to talk about it with anybody.
And we have this thing, and I mean, it's not. I can't say that every man in the world has to deal with it, but for the most part, I feel like men are taught that they're not supposed to share their feelings, that they're supposed to just be tough and deal with it and take sort it out on yourself. Go to the gym, hit the bag, or do whatever you need to do, but don't put your problems on somebody like. And coming from generations before, like, well, I had to deal with my shit, so you can
deal with yours.
And then we wonder why the age expectancy of men is lower than women. The rate of suicide is much higher than in women.
Male compared to female, which is so fucking sad. So sad. I even just learned of another one last week. Like every time I hear about somebody, committing, male or female, it just breaks my heart, because I'm like, fuck, if I could have got in front of that person, maybe they would still,
Yeah, it's definitely a tough thing, and I know a lot of people who have dealt with it personally, and I know a lot of men, like older men, like men in their 60s, 70s who raised kids, had a good job, did everything that they were supposed to do in their lives, and now they're at that age where supposedly we're supposed to be able to just relax and enjoy life, and they're severely depressed, because
they're high bracket for suicide.
Very much so.
Yeah, no, there's a guy here last year actually, it's in that age bracket. It's a very similar thing. He had his family and all that, and then jumped off the ridge. Committed suicide, like at 63 years of age.
Yeah, and then like even success doesn't do it for it either. My brother's former boss was a billionaire, a self-made billionaire, came from nothing and was doing so well, but suffering from horrible depression and bipolar disorder, and killed himself, and had a family and all of this stuff around. So,
and they're the most dangerous ones sometimes, because everybody thinks they've got it all together.
Exactly.
There's so much pressure for them to maintain that, and then inside, like I remember even like when I was supposedly successful in society's eyes. In Australia, I had houses all around Australia, and I had a good construction business, and I had money in the bank, and I had cars and toys, and on the outside everything was amazing, a young family, but I was like so down and depressed and suicidal inside, because I just felt like I had no idea why I was here. I had no real meaning or purpose, and like I just felt I had so much shame and guilt and stuff that like in trauma inside, where I felt like I was unlovable. So no matter how much even my family tried to love me, and I couldn't let it in, because I just felt unlovable.
So for somebody who's just coming, like thought, okay, maybe I'd like to check out a men's circle. They come in, there's a group of guys, like what do you expect? What goes on? Like at least a brief overview of. So
before they come in, I've just written a blog all about what happens in a men's circle, because I have mostly women who come up and say, "My God, I want to know what happens in women's circle, and I wish I could be a fly on the wall." Or a lot of women come and say, "Can I come in with a big jacket, scarf, a hat, put on a moustache on?" And go, "Like, because that's what men are."
Exactly.
That's all we do.
We just grunt to each other all evening long.
But I'll give you send you the blog link, and you can put that up. But it's basically, as each man arrives, we sage just to help clear the energy body. Nothing woo-woo. They used to do this in the American tribes. And,
definitely.
So we sage, and then everybody sits in circle, and then we do a brief meditation to bring us into the space. Then we go through the guidelines, and each man reads out a guideline, and we talk about what the guidelines are about. So, things like confidentiality, most important.
Very much
non-judgmental atmosphere, using I statements, no advice giving, like speaking from our own experience, all of that stuff. So, and then we split into 3 groups, and then in the smaller groups we just ask, we go around and introduce ourselves, say how we're feeling on the night, and is there anything that we want to bring to group, and then we just go from there. And we have about an hour and a half of group work.
Yeah, and I found for me, like, because I didn't have anything to share myself. Well, I mean, I could have shared, but I was, at a 3 out of 10. Basically, I'm feeling good. I don't have anything that's super important on my mind. But in my responses to other people after they shared, I realized I ended up sharing a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't even think that was really on my mind at the time, but it kind of came up when I was listening to other people.
And that's the magic, I think, that happens there. So even if you go with nothing, and you don't have to share, like, so if a guy wants to sit there, and some guys do, they'll come in, they'll say nothing for the whole circle, and they, like, even just this last one on Friday night, one guy who didn't say anything, and at the end he said, man, I got so much. He said I could resonate with every single thing every man spoke about. I just didn't feel like talking tonight. But he said it was such a profound night for me. So even just not saying anything.
That's amazing. And what about if somebody was interested in becoming like a facilitator for a men's circle? Do you have some
I just was thinking
tips or programs?
What I would love to do, one of my, I mean, if I could find there's a philanthropist out there, a multi-millionaire, who wants to donate some money, I would love to just go around the world setting up men's circles. And then teaching people how to facilitate them. So go to a place, get the men's circle happening, somebody facilitate it, and then leave.
To have somebody go around and just set up, like, teach facilitators all over the place,
and then set up the circles, and also then, because I also ran a mixed circle here the other night, so where women, because there's women who do women's circles, and then the men. So I mean, as valuable as that is, and it's really valuable, it's also really cool to bring them together, and then we did some work together, and it's such a beautiful experience where, the men get to witness the women in their circle, the women get to witness the men in the circle, and then we sit in a big circle and process, so the women get to voice anything they're struggling with the masculine about, and vice versa, it can be anything. And what I love is it's so real, and people are, they talk about real shit, I'm really struggling with, sex at the moment, or in my relationship, and, they'll feel like she's, like my partner's got all the power when it comes to sex, or and talking about real stuff like that. So it's real gold that comes out, and then the women speak to that, and the men speak to that, and really powerful.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. It'd be good. I'd like to do a joint circle too. It'd be interesting to have.
And I love it too, because and even the women get it's so real and juicy. I love it when real stuff happens, So because you can work with that, and it's real life, So instead of, it's not wanky spiritual, and everybody trying to talk about how amazing they are and how much they know. It's none of that. It's real life, which I love.
Well, that's, I guess, one of the concepts about the men's circle that I like so much too, though, and I wonder how it would go with the mixed circle, is that, like, and from my experience, and this is why, every time I meet a woman or somebody that says, oh, I'd love to go and be part of the men's circle and everything, oh, I'll just observe or whatever, but the reality is that if you get a small group of men together and actually get them talking about how they really feel, and, like, being open, without sitting at a bar with beers watching a game in the background or something. You get them really talking, and then you bring a woman into that group, and all of a sudden the attitude changes, the atmosphere shifts, because a lot of men still have those ideas, I have to act a certain way in front, even if they're not interested in that woman. It's just like this, I'm a man, I need to be this way, I need to do this thing. So
that can definitely happen, but I've run enough circles now, mixed circles as well, and I've run men's circles witnessed by women. And I've run enough now where, occasionally you'll get a guy that'll kind of do that, and it happened a little bit the other night, but most, like I'd say, as a general rule, they don't. Like, the guys are actually, and we talked about it beforehand, let's just be real, let's just act like how we normally act, and they're just going to witness. And I've run enough of those where the guys have just been absolutely open, vulnerable, real, not changed anything because there's a woman present. And I've had, and then women at the end in tears, Going, wow, I had no idea men were capable of being so open and vulnerable. Yeah, it's a really beautiful experience.
Yeah, a lot of us don't even know
We
that
don't.
we're capable of being that open and vulnerable.
Well, one of the most common things men say, like over the years, I've been running men's circles, and this one guy, American guy, I remember saying, my perception of a man is he's either going to hurt me, or he's going to steal my money, or steal my woman.
Yeah.
And then so many guys say that as they've come through the circles, you know, that's my perception. And what a sad perception to have of men.
Yeah.
So I think these men's circles are shifting and changing that, and they're starting to realise, wow, guys can be open and soft and sensitive and vulnerable, and I can trust. You know, so now guys who are coming every week, the reason they come in every week, and I talk about this at the end as well, like when I check out, I usually say, I mean, I feel so held. You know, I feel held by men, by masculine brothers. And I've spent my whole life with women in my life because I didn't have a male role model, you know. So I was chasing those male role models, but I never ever felt like I could connect with them. So whereas now I feel so connected. I have some beautiful friends, you know, beautiful network of male friends here who I know I can call anytime and they'll be there for me.
Well, that's so important to have.
Yeah.
It's crazy because it was like, you know, one person we had a group of 8 when I was there, and one person spoke and said something, you know, about his father, and then, you know, the next guy was like, man, I was going to talk about this pain in my shoulder, and I just can't figure out why it's there, and I can't get rid of it. And as soon as you were talking about your father, like, it started like throbbing, this pain in my shoulder, and then I started thinking about my father, and like, actually when I started thinking about it and then started sharing about it, the pain started to go away in my shoulder. And then like the next person was like, you know, I wasn't going to talk about my father either, but because it's interesting how there's so many similar underlying stories and feelings that you might not even have thought about or recollected from your past until somebody else brings it up, and then it's like, oh yeah, you know, something just like that happened to me.
Relate and resonate, and that's the gold, I think, in the men's circles. And then also then knowing, like, I'm not alone. You know, like, I don't have to go through this on my own. I thought I was the only one. And especially when it comes to shame and guilt, you know, shame and a lot of sexuality, you know, a lot of shame and guilt. Men have shame and guilt around sexuality and around addiction, and you know, like, and then when they hear other people starting to share that, they're like, oh my God, you know, like, because there's a saying, you're only as sick as your secrets, you know, but those secrets keep us so sick that we end up suiciding, you know. So when they start to hear people talking about it and normalizing it, not in a sense that it's condoning it, but, you know, realizing that, fuck, everyone's going through the same stuff, you know. It's like, wow, you know, like, I feel so much better hearing that, and I feel like I can bring something to the table and talk about that.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I really liked it. I definitely, when I come back, I'm going to be, you know, there as many Fridays as I can get there. It was a really nice experience for me, and I had never been to one before. I had heard about it. Actually, my friend Chris is the one that told me that I should come, and he was facilitator. He was in a different group. I didn't even speak to him all night, but it was like just the fact that he mentioned it to me and that I ended up there, it was really lovely. It's great.
Powerful work. I love it. It's
So I'll end with a couple questions. One is one that that's on another podcast that I listen to, and I just like the question that much, and that is, if you could talk to 20-year-old Dean and give him one piece of advice, like, what would you say to him?
That's a really good question. I like that. Look, I mean, I'm caught between two. One where I would just say, you know, I love you.
Yeah.
You're amazing. Because I don't know that I'd want to change any of it.
Yeah.
Because if I did, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have to do what I do in the world now. You know? So I think that's probably all I'd say is I love you. You're amazing. Yeah.
And that's something that we should be telling ourselves every single day, right? Yeah.
Well, it could be. We don't have to sugarcoat ourselves, but we could. It would be amazing to tell ourselves that.
Yeah. And then, so another one, and this is one of my mother's favorite games from Authentic Relating Games, and even though now you've just told us so much about yourself already that, you know, whatever you want to share, but it's if you really knew me, you would know that, and then you can finish the sentence.
So I think if you really knew me, you would know that I love to serve.
Yeah.
I love giving, and I used to do it from an unhealthy place most of my life, where I was giving, and I was doing it to be needed, to be liked, because I was a people pleaser, and I needed to give and show, and and help people all the time, and it came from an unhealthy place. Whereas now it feels like there might be still an element of that at times, but it feels like it's a real genuine place of just, I love serving, I love helping, I love helping shift people's perspective and shifting things in their life, and I get so much joy out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dean, so much for being on this podcast. And again, your website. I saw one is lifetorque.com.au.
Yeah, Lifetorque, so lifetorque.com.au. And within that, that's the main website, and within that there's a dictionary.com.au as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what was that book again?
So
I didn't even realize
the book is called Shoot Up, and it's on the website as well. There's a PDF, and also you can order a hard copy if you want hard copy. So
awesome.
Yeah, and it's an autobiography all about my life, how I became a junkie, and then how I turned it around.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank everybody for listening. If you want links to any of this stuff, I will provide them on my website and also underneath the YouTube channel. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Awesome. Have an amazing day. Thanks, guys.